Okay, so Aries issue number 15. This is Nightmare House. I recently got 4 of the Aries magazines in the mail from somebody here on the BGG forum, and I wanted to do a playthrough of this one. This one seems like one of the more interesting out of all the games that I got. The other ones were the Arena of Death, Nightmare House, Return of the Stainless Steel Rat, and the Wreck of the BSM Pandora, which I've already done a video on already. So I've just done the basic setup, and I just wanted to mention a few things and just show you the basic setup. The other thing I wanted to talk about was some of the good files. Again, one of the many benefits of the game site here is the extra bits and cheat sheets and changes to rules and things you can find. So I downloaded and printed a few things. This first one is about playing a solo game, suggestions for playing a solo game. So I printed those out there and just put those up there. Here's a kind of summary of all the characters and what they can do during various phases. I don't know how much use that will get, but maybe. These are the core rules summary. Just a nice layout of each of the 11, I think there's 11 different phases in a turn. I'll talk about that in a bit. So there's page 2 of that, and then page 3. And then here's a Nightmare House player aid. So I think it's about the same thing, just in a little bit more detail than that one I previously just showed you. 2 pages there, I think. And then here's some additions and clarifications that I thought I'd print up from somebody who bought the game and played it and posted on the forums. He wrote this kind of clarifying some of the rules and additions to some of the rules that he found useful. So I thought I'd give those a shot too. So I'm pretty set up. So the whole premise is one player plays the house and the other players play one of, how many characters were there? 7, 8 characters? I can't remember. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 characters to choose from. But basically it's a 5-person game, one of those people being the house. So you get a little introduction about the history of this house, and it's pretty cool because the characters themselves all have some history with it too, or history with the supernatural. The whole vibe of the game so far, the whole theme of the game really comes through so far. I'm only kind of halfway through. I read most of the instructions and then kind of going back and checking out some details. It suggests you just read the whole thing first, and then as you play, just kind of refer to them. So that's what I've done, and the theme comes through pretty strong, which is I'm finding out is a pretty important part of this whole gaming for me, as in Mushroom Eaters, as in Pandora, especially something like Mushroom Eaters. I really like all the extra material, all the errata that you get, and all the extra stories and the attention to the details. And I gotta say, I know some people complain about like the chits from the 80s and stuff. You can't really see that. That's pretty bright glare. See if I can take some of that glare off there. But I love them. I think they're great. I like the minimal artwork. So the setup, we'll move over here. So here's a look. I found a little piece of I had an old poster frame downstairs, and it had this plastic sheet for covering the poster. It's not quite as big as this game board because this game board is enormous, but I didn't want to backfold this paper because you can see here some of the wear that's happening on it. I didn't want to cause that to maybe rip. So this way I can still put all the chits on, and it sits on a flat surface. So this here is the astral plane setup. So for a solitary game, it suggests this is the entity chit right in the middle. It suggests to put it in the middle, but when you're playing with other people, you can put it on 5, 6, or 7, one of those rings, and then you put these control chits on number 4, the 4th ring, and then all these other ones that you see are chits for the various rooms on all 3 floors. So 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, there's attic, and I believe the tower there, and then there's a cellar over here. So once the house has laid all this out, I just laid it out randomly. I didn't really look at them. It suggests doing that for a solo play, but since it's the first time, I don't think it matters too much. I'm sure underneath each of the rooms is a number. So 1, 5 there, 1, 6, which I'm sure will come in during the game. But for now, since I haven't played it, I figured a random distribution of them is the best way to go. Then there was these 2, what were they called again? Let me just go to the setup here. 2 focus markers is what they are. And what they represent, each focus marker indicates a focus of evil where the house can materialize haunts like spirits and stuff during play. So in those 2 rooms that I have my focus markers, that's where I can make spirits and stuff appear. So I put 1 in the library and 1 in the nursery. Library I think was on the 1st floor here somewhere. Library right there. And then nursery up here. Random-ish, 1 on each floor I figured would be a good way. So that's the start of that. The other thing that happens is, let's just go in order. The house places all of the power markers in a teacup or other opaque container from which they are drawn during play. This cup is called the power cup. The house places 1 immobile haunt marker of his choice in front face up in the crypt, graveyard, cellar, and tower spaces. So that's these ones. So these are the haunt markers with the eyes there, and they represent the various things you're going to find in the game. Let's just take a look at one here. I think it was in this cup over here. So you won't be able to read it, but there you go. So it's got the glowing red eyes on one side. This one, for example, says occult voices, and it's a 5 with a square around it, which will represent its power. And there's a circle, square, or a triangle that represent different aspects of how they utilize that power. And again, I just picked random and put them down, just to make it a little more of a thrill for me, so to speak. So that was that. Markers in a teacup. The house secretly looks at the discovery markers and places 1 marker front face up in each space of his choice on the house map that has a room marker on the astral plane. So again, each room has a spot on the astral plane here. These are called the discovery markers, and it's various things. We'll just look at one because it won't matter too much if I remember it or not. So they have an exclamation point on it, and this one on, for example, is chandelier. So it'll just be different things that you'll encounter as you're going through them. I think there's like scratches and occult voices or something like that, or whispering and things like this. So for example, the example they use in the magazine here is blood stains. So it's just stuff you're going to find throughout the house that'll creep you out and just kind of add more to the theme, and I'm sure come back to this astral plane here. Again, I mean, I just keep looking at it, but the design on this one is just incredible. I love this astral plane, and I love that idea that you're going to be taking part in there. And then the house places one lights marker in the main hall of each of the 3 floors with the on side showing, and that's what I've done here, and that's just this light bulb. So one side is on, one side is the lights are off on the floor, and that'll affect gameplay as we go through as well. The house places the tool markers in a teacup, and each player draws 3. The tool markers look like this. They have a, oh, that's hard to see, the glare there. It's a question mark on it anyway. I can't get the glare off. There you go, question mark. And for example, on this one is a flashlight, rosary, and a candle. This one is a dagger, a pistol, and a candle. So each player gets 3. I'm putting them face up since I'm playing solo. The other ones go back into the box. So that's what happened there, and then each player selects a set of markers for his character. Nightmare House contains 4 sets of markers, one for each of the 4 possible players. Each set includes a psyche marker, a soul marker, astral body marker, and a status marker. The player to the left of the house is always the first hunter and uses the markers labeled first hunter. Now if you could see down here on this one, this is a status marker. You'd see that it says first hunter underneath. So here's kind of what they look like. So a psyche marker looks like that. A soul marker looks like this. Astral body marker like that. And then status marker looks like that. Your soul marker goes on a space on the soul track over here. The 2 characters I've picked are Lorenzo Potter and Kate. So Lorenzo Potter is the first player and Kate is the second, or first hunter and second hunter. They each have a chit with their psyche marker underneath. So here's Potter's, and he's a 4 and a 6. And what the 4 and the 6 mean are, let me find the page here. So for example, in the magazine Chase, physical strength is a 5, psychic strength is a 4. And when you flip it over, if they get possessed, they have a haunt strength of 5. Now I think the physical strength is how many spaces they can move, possibly, throughout the game. We'll find that out as we go through, though. I don't want to speak too much on that yet. And then, so there's astral body markers and 2 pentagrams. They're set aside for now until another part of the game later. Each player places his character front face up on the front veranda. He places his psyche marker with its intact side showing under his character. And then you set the hour clock marker at 6 p.m. when you begin play. So basically this game takes place in a 12-hour window. So 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And once you hit 6 a.m. then the game is over. So that kind of is the timer amount of time that you have to kill the entity and clear the house of spirits. I can't remember if you have to clear the house entirely, or I think your main goal is just to get to the entity. So, and that's the little counter there that'll move along and keep track of what round you're in, basically. The power wheel hasn't come into place yet, but it will as we carry on. There's a little key over here just to remind you what's what. Room control point. Oh, there you go. Circle of darkness, stairway down. Then there's even a scale. In this game, the scale is 1 inch equals 20 feet. So you can get an idea of how enormous this house is with its 3 floors. And then here it also gives you an abbreviated course of play. So each phase basically during play. So there you go, there's an intro to the setup of Nightmare House. I'll play a bit and we'll get back to it in the next video, and I'll let you know what kind of happened and how we started. So I started out power phase, and what happens is the house draws some power chits from the power cup. How many he draws depends on how many axes he controls. In this case, that's represented by these red squares here. In this case, he controls 12. Then you add the number of players, which is 2 players. The house blind draws from the power cup a number of power markers equal to the number of axes he controls, plus the number of hunters in the game, minus the number of power markers currently being used to energize mobile haunts. Which in this case is none, because the ones that I put at the front of the game are immobile, so they're not activated basically. They're still just standing by, so I don't have to minus that 4. So it's 12 plus 2, which got me 14. It says after you look at them, you can place them in, but because this is a solo game, I just randomly laid them out there on the power wheel. And that's the houses section up there. And then the first player and the second player drew theirs. Let me go back to a bigger picture of it. You draw equal to their psychic strength. So both of them had a psychic strength of 6. So they each drew 6. And again, I didn't look at them. I just stacked them up randomly. We'll see what I do if I decide to. I might just draw them randomly as well too throughout the game. So that was the power phase. The light phase we didn't do because all the lights are on, and it says if all lights are on, which they are on each floor, that was those light bulb chits there. Skip this step and go to step 2. And it says if all lights are off, or if it is earlier than 8 p.m., which it is, it's still 6 p.m., skip this step and go to the next phase. So for this early part of the game, for the first couple of hours anyway, we probably won't end up doing this light phase. So we moved on to movement phase. And it says during this phase, what you can do is you can drop some of your tools, which you see there, those 3 and those 3, into the spot that you are, which we started here, and then you can pick up to 3. I decided instead of dropping them and picking them up, I just start the players with what they started with. Each of them has a candle. Our first hunter, Lorenzo Potter, also has a flashlight and a rosary. And then Kate also has a pistol and a dagger. So they're both going to be able to see. Then you do your movement part of your action. And again, that's your physical strength. Kate had 5 and Potter had 4. So Potter he started here and went 1, 2, 3, 4. You can only go through doors. Now, when there's lights off, which there are on the verandas, it costs you 2 movement points, but because he had a candle, it was still 1. So that's why I was allowed to go there. Kate took a little bit of an extra chance. She had 5. Figured she'd go 1, 2, take the stairway up to the second floor, 3. Hold on 1 second, sorry. Yeah. Service room. So she made it up to the second floor. It's hard to read. The sitting room there, I think, is what that says. She's making her way to the nursery, which I'll show you on the next turn if she makes it there, because that's where the house has like a portal that she's going to try to exercise, so he can't use that portal to manifest any more haunts. So we'll see if that happens. So she made it to this point anyway. So that was the movement phase, and now all I'm doing is figuring out, where are we here? The movement phase finished off. There was nothing else that that we could use during the movement phase. Same with the warding phase. The warding phase is what I was talking about. If she could have made it to the nursery, she could have create a ward, rolls 2 dice. If the modified result is less than the strength of the focus of evil within the room, there is no effect. If the modified result is greater than or equal to the strength of the focus of evil within the room, the ward is created. And again, disperse that focus of evil to create a ward, which would again stop the house from manifesting any haunts through that room, because you've basically warded off all evil from that room. So then I was reading the haunt phase, which is E, the 5th phase of our 11-part turn, basically. And that's where I'm stopping for now, because this is when the house can create some haunts and move them through the building to go after our hunters. And it's a little bit confusing, so I'm just reading as much as I can before I move forward, because I think during this turn I can mobilize some of these immobile haunts here that are here and then move them towards the players to get some action going here right off the bat. But I'm having a little trouble reading it and coming to a decision of how that works. It's just going to be one of those things, I think, like it was with the Wreck of the Pandora, that the writing is it's difficult, it's very complex, and from the reading I've been doing online, a lot of the games around this time suffered from the same thing, from what people have been saying, that the 80s games like this were just really worded poorly, and sometimes the instructions just made it so you couldn't move forward. It just made it very, very confusing. So maybe I'll hop online and see if there's any clarification on this part of it. Okay, I'll be back with some more gameplay. Okay, so this is going to be a bit tough. It's later at night now, and I'm finally getting a chance to sit down for this next phase. So I did a bit of reading, and the haunt phase is where we were. And what I didn't understand is the removing haunts from the clock, because there wasn't any, and I just didn't have the time to keep reading. So I kept reading, and what happens is, depending on what ring you're in, I'm in 7. So if you're in the 7th with your entity, you get to pick 3 haunts. If you're in the 6th, you get to pick 4 haunts. And if you're in the 5th, you get to pick 5 haunts. These are the haunts that can be energized this hour. If the house draws a haunt marker that can no longer be used due to the effect of some discovery, this haunt marker is permanently removed from play and replacement is drawn. So that's one thing I didn't find out yet either, the discoveries. So that's these. The characters did land in the rooms, and it didn't say that I'm supposed to check the discoveries first. I'm going to read back on that and kind of have a glance ahead. Maybe it's in an upcoming phase. But because it specifies it here in the haunt phase, I have a feeling it was supposed to happen earlier. Probably when you first move into the room, you'd check it out, would be my assumption. So, that said though, since I didn't do it, it'll be fine for now. I'll sort that out. I'd heard, or I'd read on the Board Game Geek site that this is, again, I'm going to reiterate this is notoriously poor rules written for this game. And there was note of somebody who had actually been one of the play testers on this game saying that there were rules that were written after publication that specified a lot more and were edited and changed and everything. He had said that he was going to look for them and post them. That was back in like 2003, I think. And I did a little more digging, not fully on the site, but I couldn't see anything obvious where he had listed it. So maybe I'll give it another check again and dig a little deeper. So that might have been something that was missed as far as the discovery phase. My inclination is to, you enter a room, you discover something, the lights are on all the floors, you'll be able to see, plus my characters have candles and flashlights, so they should be able to see anything. So maybe I'll incorporate that in the next turn and we'll see what happens there. Anyway, back to the haunting. So the house now, which is here, like I said, got to pick 3 creatures, or 3 haunts, and then I decided only to initiate 2 of them. So there's different types. Like I had said before, on the back of those chits, haunt strength. The power of the haunt when it engages in a haunting of 1 or more characters. If the haunt strength is surrounded by a triangle, the haunt is mobile physical haunt. If the haunt strength is surrounded by a square, the haunt is a mobile psychic haunt. If the haunt strength is surrounded by a circle, the haunt is an immobile psychic haunt. So if you have a physical haunt, you pick one of your power icons from the power wheel, place it underneath, and if it's a physical one, it goes 2 hours ahead. If it's a psychic one, it goes 1 hour ahead. There was one that was surrounded by a circle that was an immobile one that I decided not to use this turn, and you can do that. You don't have to place all of them. You can place the ones that you want. So I threw that one back in the cup and it'll get drawn later. Now, what happens after that? Well, the house can decide whether or not he'll accelerate the appearance of any physical haunts that he just placed on the clock. So this one here again is our physical haunt because it went 2 hours ahead of where we are. I can choose to accelerate it by adding another token underneath it, which would then give it 2, and moving it 1 hour closer to the current hour that I'm on. It obviously can't move to the hour that I'm on because we're in that hour right now, but I can, if I want, choose to have this haunt come closer here. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it like this just for the sake of it's just the game, the first time I've played it, so I don't see a rush. So that's where I'm at now. One mention about how the haunts move. If the haunt is a physical haunt, it has to move through doorways, just like our hunters or anything else. If it's a psychic haunt, it can float through walls and go up through ceilings. Now, you might not, well, not you might not, you definitely won't be able to see this. For example, main storeroom, there's a little room written underneath called Cook's Room. That room in smaller print is to reference what's directly above that room on the second floor. So if you're doing your psychic haunts, you can go up 1 level and that would count as 1 movement. Haunts get 6 movements total. They're not, it's always 6, and it costs 1 movement point per move, whether that's through walls or through ceilings or through doors. Lights on or off doesn't affect the haunts like it does the hunters. So there's no limitations as far as that's concerned. And then it started talking about hunters whose souls are possessed, which isn't happening to us right now. So we're going to skip that part of it. We won't worry about that part of it. And then we're off into the search phase. Yeah, so I'll read up on that and do some more movement and I'll come back and explain it. Okay, so immediately my question was answered with the search phase. When the search phase starts, each character who is not unconscious or possessed and who occupies a space with a discovery marker, those are the ones with the exclamation point on them, States in turn whether his character will search the space he occupies. If the room is dark, no character other than Potter can search unless the character has a candle or a flashlight. So that's something also to note. There's a few characters that have special powers that help them. That allow them to do things that the rest of the characters can't. Potter is one of those. It'll come up again in a moment here. So Potter is one of the guys that I'm playing. At the beginning of the game, when it said if you're going to play a solo game or your first time through, it suggested 3 characters to use. Again, since it was my first time, I chose 2 of those 3 characters, Potter and Kate. And so what happens is, if you're going to conduct a search, you roll 1 die, and if it is lower than your highest number on your chit, for example, Potter has 4 and a 6, Kate has a 5 and a 6. I know you can't really see that, but that is what they have. So they both have a high of 6. So 1 die to get lower than 6 is 100% you're going to get it. The other thing with Potter and Kate is you're allowed to subtract 2 from the die roll if the character performing the search is Potter, Chase, or Kate. So even more so. So they were both successful. Potter got something called bloodstains, and this is where it gets it gets pretty cool as far as just everything that's included in the instructions, like all the errata and stuff. I mean, it really helps that theme to sink in. So they have little summaries for all the haunt chits. So every haunt chit that you will come across has a little description, and it'll tell you to do something. Every discovery marker chit has a little something as well too. So when we got to bloodstains, it was blood begins to flow from a nearby wall, spelling out the nature and location of one other discovery of the house's choice. This discovery is immediately flipped over, and the first hunter to enter the same space with that discovery is immediately affected by it, stopping play to determine the effect. As soon as the bloodstains are read, this discovery marker is permanently removed from play. So that's what happened. So I just picked a random one, and it came up as Nora's ghost. Now, when Kate turned hers over, it was Sarah's ghost, and Sarah's ghost had a very interesting effect. You contact the ghost of Sarah Darkholme, wife of Alistair Darkholme, and one of the friendly spirits trapped in but not dominated by the house. Always a strong-willed woman, Sarah fought a lifelong battle to break the house's hold on her husband. She continues this fight even in death. This discovery is immediately and permanently removed from play as soon as its back face is turned up. Thereafter, Sarah's ghost is presumed to have attached itself to the hunters and to be advising them for the rest of the game. As a means of representing this fact, as soon as the Sarah's ghost marker is removed from play, all other discovery markers on the house map and all haunt markers on the house map or the clock are flipped over to reveal their identity. The numbers on the power markers that are energizing the haunts are not revealed, however. So that's pretty cool. So ultimately what that did was allow us to see all the haunts, including every single discovery chit on all the floors, plus the few haunts that were scattered across. So now we can kind of see everything. So that's going to basically cut out the search phase portion of the game in future turns. Something else that could happen if those things didn't happen, Kate and Lorenzo have the ability to do a psychic search. Each hunter whose character is conducting a psychic search rolls 1 die in turn. If the result is greater than or equal to his character's psychic strength, nothing happens. If the result is less than his character's psychic strength, the house must reveal to the hunter the identity of one discovery of the hunter's choice whose front face is showing. The discovery is flipped over for the rest of the game or until it is removed from play. So that's pretty amazing that you kind of get this extra ability with us, 2 of the characters anyway. So that's pretty much the search phase. At this point, I'll say that while there's been a couple of stumbles, overall it's fairly easy to understand. I mean, I've really been taking my time with it, obviously. Like I said, of course, I've had a couple of flubs here and there, and I'm sure people watching the video are going to state that I made some mistakes, especially with the haunts that started on the game. I have a feeling I could move some of them. I just chose not to, because you don't have to move them. Triangles are mobile psychic haunts, and squares are immobile psychic haunts. So the squares can never move anyway. The triangles can move along with the circles. So I could have moved 2 of them to catch one of the guys. Maybe I'll do that next turn so we can see a battle. I don't want to go through the whole game with you guys. I'm going to go through kind of the entire phase and then up into the next hour just a little bit to see some of the differences, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do a fight on the astral plane as well too, that I can show you. Instead of showing you the entire game, we'll just go to there. So I'm gonna keep it on with the next phase, which is called the first panic phase, and then we'll get into the astral phase after that. So I'll talk to you in a bit.